Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today. We're going to give it a few minutes just to let everybody join. So we'll start in a few minutes, let people filter in. I've just seen a quick message in the chat. Yes, so Sean, the whole recording you'll get after the webinar, so that's no problem that you got to leave. So yeah, you'll receive that afterwards. We'll just give it one more minute, and then we'll get into it. Okay, great. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to our webinar, where we'll have a panel discussion today about a new era of leadership. So hopefully everyone is in the right place. Just some housekeeping points before we do start. So this will be recorded, as I've just said. So if anyone would like to recap the content at a later date or share with someone, then you'll be able to do that afterwards. If you do have any questions, please pop them in the question box, and then we'll be addressing them at the end. So if it's about a comment that you want to give to one of the speakers, or you just want clarity on something, or you'd like a further opinion, then just do let us know in the chat box. And also, as an added bonus for joining us today, you'll have access to an ebook which actually dives deeper into the topics we're discussing today. You'll find that on your dashboard under related content if you want to have a look at that, and then that's obviously free for you to use and explore those topics. So that'd be really good if you could gain access to that whilst you're here today. So the premise of today's discussion is going to cover many desired skills that are prevalent in the workplace in 2021 and beyond. And what we expect will become even more vital in the years to come. So hopefully you'll join us in that conversation. So before I go any further, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Danielle Rigby. I'm the Director of Learning for SAP Litmos Content, specifically the soft skills part of the business. So I lead a wonderful team of developers who create absolutely fantastic e-learning content. So we sell this to our clients globally, and a lot of you are on this call today, so welcome. We'll focus on our most recent flagship collection, which is our leadership suite and all of its components, which we think create an amazing immersive learning experience for our clients. So I'm actually joined by three very special people today who are at the very core of what we do. They research and write our professional skills content, and they're all very, very talented writers and storytellers, as you'll see today. So I'd love you to meet each one of them individually, and I'm going to ask them as well, which course in the leadership collection did they most enjoy writing and why? So I'll go with Mike first.
Hello, I'm Mike. I'm a developer, and I think one of the courses that I enjoyed researching and writing the most was probably Global Citizen Mindset, because it's a subject that I was going into blind. Like, I'm sure everyone could probably work out sort of what it means, but like researching it and getting into like the nitty gritty of like the world's getting smaller and how physical distances are becoming less important, and there's a new barometer for success is how we can communicate like globally. So I think that's what was like a really interesting course for me. And also it was quite confronting because there was a lot of gaps in my knowledge that I need to work on. Like, my knowledge of geopolitics is absolutely terrible. So my global mindset is not up to scratch just yet, but I'm working on it.
Oh, thank you. And as you can see, Mike's a very funny guy as well. So we'll be talking about geopolitics later. Hopefully not. So Carl, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, yeah, I'm Carl, another developer, and the course that I most enjoyed researching for this suite, I'd have to say would probably be the tech literacy course, and the reason for that is it pretty much blew away a lot of the misconceptions that I had, in particular about the likes of digital natives and sort of the preconception that maybe they're sort of innately or inherently better at technology than perhaps others, where studies seem to show that that isn't necessarily the case. So it was one of them that really sort of makes you rethink what you believe,
Oh, good. That's great. So how about Jazz? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Jazz. I'm also one of our content developers, script writers. My favourite course I wrote in this collection is called The Accidental Manager. And for a start, I think that's a funny title, and it says exactly what it is. It's a course that's basically like a how-to guide for anyone that's in a panic because they're a manager and they might not have had it in their career path originally. So I think that's a really good thing. And also, it's not just kind of a skills-based course and a knowledge-based course. It's more about how you might feel and the emotions involved with suddenly becoming a new manager. So yeah, that was definitely my favourite. I enjoyed that the most.
Fab, thank you. I just noticed in the chat, everyone, that link is broken to the ebook. So we've got people in the background who will work to fix that. But if it doesn't work on here today, then we can get that to you as you've signed up for the webinar anyway. So apologies for that, but hopefully we'll get it to you either way. So anyway, let's move on to our panel discussion today. So we have a few things which we do want to cover. So and that's based on what we've created in this leadership suite. So let's start by addressing the elephant in the room, that when talking about age in the workplace, it can be a very sensitive topic given that workplace demographics now cover more age groups than ever before. So this means whilst we're in a place where one thing doesn't fit all for managing everybody in your team, we need to consider factors such as culture, environment, gender, ethnicity, and age, and they're all important when navigating global teams. So we decided to aim this leadership collection at those who are entering management role for the first time, so are likely to fall into, but not exclusively, into either a millennial or a Gen Z age bracket. So we're acutely aware of the focusing on a particular group of people may raise questions, but what we want to do is we want to answer those in the session today. And the courses have been so carefully created with sensitivity in mind that I know that you'll enjoy them and see the care that has been put into them. So to ignore the fact that there are new and emerging skills that's becoming more prevalent as more digital enhancements take over worldwide would be really detrimental to any business. So acknowledging a change in potential skills and how new managers can prepare themselves and their teams across any industry as well is vital for businesses to successfully navigate this post-pandemic world. So it's accelerating virtually as we speak today. So we really need to put a focus on that. So let's start by addressing a topic which has become more and more discussed, especially as high-profile leaders and celebrities have talked about having experienced this at times, and that's imposter syndrome. So Mike, I know you created the Imposter Syndrome course for new managers. So how might you define some of the specific struggles that emerging managers might face when they want to overcome imposter syndrome?
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting about imposter syndrome as a concept is that its acknowledgement by mainstream culture sort of paralleled the changing expectations of what we want from a manager now. Like as working culture has moved towards more transparency from the managers as a prerequisite, imposter syndrome has equally emerged as like a widely recognized issue, especially for new and emerging managers. I think that's because we want authentic and honest leaders who can admit that they struggle from time to time, but too much transparency or vulnerability has been shown to undermine your effectiveness as a leader. So I think the most specific struggle is that how can you work through combating like the effects of imposter syndrome whilst maintaining that careful balance of vulnerability and stoicism for your team? And so in writing the course, the Imposter Syndrome for New Managers course, we sort of discuss how imposter syndrome tends to exacerbate certain negative habits that new managers may be already prone to, like perfectionism and workaholism and maybe an unwillingness to delegate. And so in it, we like sort of outline and identify the specific steps you can follow to effectively combat these issues, whether that be by leaning into the transparency and establishing open and honest dialogue with your team, or maybe look into more traditional leadership techniques that can mitigate the effects of like feeling inadequate, like realistic goal setting or defining specific job roles. Like essentially it's just about acknowledging the parameters of transparency, where and when it's appropriate to be open, be vulnerable, and then finding techniques that fit that space to build your confidence and maintain your team's confidence in you.
Yeah. And I suppose it's quite hard to 1 minute be part of a team and then the next you've got all these new responsibilities, all eyes are on you. So from people who were actually your peers not very long ago. So as well, this is actually something that we thought about and we thought needed addressing for all emerging managers as well. Jazz, I'd like to sort of bring you into this. So how easy do you think it is to go from being a friend and a colleague to leading the same people?
Yeah, I don't think it's easy at all. I don't think it's meant to be easy. I think it can be completely fine if you approach it the right way. But I think the issue is that most brand new managers don't know how to approach it. Like, why would they? So we've actually got a course in this suite that's specifically on this topic called Peer to Leader. And that's all about having to learn how to delegate for the first time and navigating that change from being friends with people to now essentially telling them what to do. Most people find it really uncomfortable and kind of awkward. They're suddenly having to give orders out to people they used to be on the same level as. So it's intimidating and it's quite, it's very intimidating. It's quite frightening. On the other hand, you've got other people that take it the opposite way and they enjoy the power shift too much. So that can also alienate people in your team. So you've just got to get that balance right. So it's all about honesty and transparency and having humility as well. Those are three very important things that kind of that course goes into a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, they're really key things when talking about not just management, but being a human in the workplace, that honesty, transparency and humility. So there's been a lot of articles and discussions like in the media about the world of work being, excuse the phrase, a buyer's market at the moment as well. So the employees are the ones like kind of in the driving seat really. So what we should really be looking at is how companies should prioritize how their employees and obviously future employees actually feel in the company culture and environment. So I suppose what kind of leadership do you think like the modern worker is looking for?
So I think to be a great leader, which is what we hope that everyone wants to be who's taking our management suite, you need to be a few different things. So it's not just about being the best friend of everybody and the entertainer. And it's also not about being a micromanager who just loves power. You need to have a balance, and it's about being someone that trusts your team. You've hired them, so you should trust them. So you want to give them some freedom and some autonomy, but also they should be able to come to you for guidance and direction and to be inspired. You should drive them and inspire them. So there's quite a lot of elements to being a great leader. But it's definitely worth mentioning that the most talented workers don't just look for a salary now. They're also looking for career purpose. So things like learning opportunities and development in their role and having some sort of future mapped out as well. We actually have courses on career purpose in the library too. But yeah, it's just, you kind of have to be multifaceted, which we have tried to cover in this suite. So we've got a course called Reimagining Leadership that kind of goes into this in great depth. We've also got strategy and pragmatism, which is about different traits, not just the emotions, but other traits that you're going to need to be a strong leader. But yeah, especially like at Litmos, we're all about the idea that training isn't just about giving you skills and equipping you with skills. It's all about kind of a greater purpose for your career. And you're not just here to pay the bills. You should be connecting to the company's culture and the company's mission. So yeah, there is a lot, but we've tried to cover it all.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, I think we're focusing on not just here in the content team, the wider business is actually focusing on purpose and actually providing people with purpose as well. So it's not training and learning aren't just a tick box exercise. And I think that's something that we all feel passionately about, and hopefully the people on this call today do as well. So I suppose we know what employees want now. It's very different from what they wanted 20 years ago, and maybe even 5 years ago. We have had this cultural reset that was the pandemic, or is the pandemic, to thank for that. And it's had like a really seismic shift in digital transformation. And so it'd be great to consider what businesses can do to prepare their workforces and, acknowledge the accelerated change in the world of work. So, Carl, I'd like to bring you into the conversation if I can. I haven't heard off you yet. So where do you personally see the future of management going in the next 5 to 10 years? Pretty intense question, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, it is hard to predict exactly as you say. It's an intense question. It's a fairly broad question as well, because it's going to be different for everyone. But I suppose in general terms, I expect the trends that we've seen already to continue. And I suppose that's what those trends are. It's kind of a movement away from the traditional, the quote-unquote managerial style. The stuff sort of Jazz was mentioning, like the traditional sort of micromanagement and control that you sometimes associate with maybe the more old school kind of management styles, into more of a leadership style, where it's more sort of focused on trust and support. One of the courses that I written that touches on that is the multiplier mindset course, which is the suggestion that the traditional managers, the old school managers, and the sort of things that are all, the micromanagement style of things are what's known as diminishes, and leaders are multipliers. So the meaning there being that by being too focused on your own control, you can actually sort of limit what your teams can achieve. Whereas if you are a leader, you're a multiplier, you can multiply it, as the name suggests. And then again, I think in terms of other trends, the next 5 to 10 years, we're sort of looking at increased digitalization, so more remote working, more adopting new technology. And, they're the sort of things you can probably say with some confidence, because, look, you mentioned the pandemic. It's knocked everything up in the air. No one saw that coming. But rather than derail these trends, which we had already seen, and move towards increased digitalization, it actually amplified them. So in terms of those trends and the main challenges for managers in the coming years, I think it's going to be about making sure that your personal style fits and that you're prepared for digital transformation. And the leadership suite is all about making sure your style fits. Yeah. And we've also got a digital transformation suite as well coming next year, which you can see where that's going.
Yeah. Thanks for that plug, Carl. That's good. So anyone who wants to know about that, the digital transformation suite is out next year. But I think it's worth noting to those of the audience today that haven't heard of multiplier mindset and what it actually is. So it's based on research and books by the Liz Wiseman Group, and the book is called Multipliers. So actually, SAP has taken this as one of our main leadership principles, and it's promoted as a preferred principle across our business. So for us as management within the company, so it focuses on creating opportunities for people to express themselves, contribute, and innovate without stifling the teams. So it definitely has its merits, and it allows space for diverse perspectives as well. So creating trust that teams are going to produce excellent results without the need for hand-holding or a perfectionist attitude. So I suppose that's now absolutely required when we're all over the world. You're now working with people on your team that you might never have met. I've never met my boss, he's in Australia, so it's one of those things, I might never meet him. So the research that this course goes into, it also talks about accidental diminishes as well, which is when your leadership traits have really good intentions, but they might actually fall short of what your teams actually need for you to thrive and get the results you want. So it is a really good theory and something that we encourage people to look at. But like I say, it's always open for discussion because it is just that, it is a theory, it is based on that. So but now, like I just mentioned, we've got the added pressure of working across time zones, different cultures, and it now makes self-reflection a lot more important, I think, because how you come across and your accidental diminishes might be prevalent, but you wouldn't know unless you reflected on that. But also considering how your behaviours are perceived in different parts of the world as well is actually really important and something we wanted to address. So Mike, I know you mentioned at the start about one of the courses you enjoyed writing was Global Citizen Mindset. So what are some of the main ways that you think that we can adopt a global mindset, and how will this impact modern management?
Well, yeah, so just going on from what you and Carl mentioned about the digital transformation of the workspace and the growth of e-com and international distribution channels, there's no such thing as a local business anymore. And with businesses adopting hybrid and flexible working, they've now got the widest possible international talent pool to draw from. So yeah, the global mindset is basically saying what's evident is that business leaders need to start taking a more global perspective of how they lead their teams, both internally and externally, and how they can facilitate growth. So broadly speaking, how this has impacted management styles is there's a new emergence of some key crucial skills and capabilities that a manager must possess now. So an emerging manager must display a much broader knowledge than ever before. So stuff like more in-depth understanding of your industry, but on a global level, international business strategies, emerging markets, and how to manage risk, but on a more global scale. And as well as this, there's some certain social capabilities intercultural empathy and how to communicate across cultures, and diplomacy, and your ability to align with diverse perspectives. And there's also an emphasis on developing your international network and building a strong reputation. These are the skills that are going to be crucial for growing your business internationally and managing diverse teams now and obviously in the future.
Yeah, definitely. So many good points there. So a lot of what we might not have been so critical, we wouldn't have considered them critical previously, we now have to. So managers who are now presenting with people from different cultures where, as an example, hierarchy in meetings might be different. So not only do we have to take into consideration individual differences like personality type, how someone makes a point or contribution in a meeting, but actually now we need to consider if people would feel comfortable to contribute or disagree with an authority figure, which in some Western cultures we might not have experienced before, but when dealing with a global team, that is something you must consider. So I think education is key here, and an understanding of the world and social issues as well that are at play. So, and actually being committed to being an ally as well, for those who might be less privileged, or to amplify the voices, really, amplify their experiences and share them. So some of that will be so valuable when accelerating your business forward, because you're taking into consideration these diverse perspectives. But Carl, you wrote our course, You, Me and Privilege. So I'd like to get your opinions on what would you say to people who see allyship as being a bit like a social justice warrior? Like what do we say to them when we're thinking about topics like this?
Well, no, look, I mean, you know, we get that whenever you're talking about privilege, it can be controversial. We understand that it can be hard to hear that maybe you're advantaged in some ways through no fault of your own over people who may not have had those advantages. I mean, even the very central premise of the course, that systemic oppression is something that exists, is challenged by some people. And, you know, at times it can almost feel like something of a political issue. As though supporting the underprivileged is some kind of partisan position you're taking up, rather than just, sort of general fairness or decency or looking out for people. And I suppose as much as this course is there to, try to convince you of the need for allyship, we are, aware that is going to fly in the face of, a few deep-seated beliefs that some people have. And we also know we're not necessarily going to change everyone's mind on the state of all society and culture with a course, right? But I suppose the important thing about this is it doesn't necessarily matter whether your beliefs, your deep-held beliefs necessarily change. Because if you look at one of the other courses in this suite, which is Trust Building and Empathy, which is arguably a lot less controversial, the takeaway is that understanding others from their point of view is critical to building trust. And you do want to build trust because it typically boosts work performance, etc., etc. So genuinely supporting others in their struggles is a big part of empathy and therefore trust building. So you don't have to believe in it, but if you want to be a good manager, you do have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, yeah, thank you for those points. And I think we'll have a lot of interaction with the audience on that one and what people think about that. But what I would like to do is actually show you what to expect from this leadership suite. So I'm going to show you a short video if it works. But what we sort of want to show is the different sort of media styles that have gone into this creation. And hopefully you don't think it's just normal click-by-click e-learning. That's not what we've created here. We've had a lot of time to put this together and a lot of thoughts gone into it. So I'm just going to share my screen with you, and hopefully it'll work. So just bear with me 1 second while I get that set up.
We know you're aware of the hundreds of training courses out there teaching you those standardized leadership skills. They're filled with stuff like how to empower your team, how to build lasting relationships, how to understand the marketplace. And don't get us wrong, it's all good advice. But what can leadership techniques developed over 50 years ago or more really teach you about leading a business in 2021? In a rapidly changing business age, the current corporate landscape is more diversified, more digitized, and more globalized than ever before. And as the way we work continues to evolve, so do the roles and responsibilities of a business leader. Well, that's the question we've just answered. Here at SAP Litmos, we've created a brand new multimedia learning experience that incorporates forward-thinking learning titles inspired by contemporary business observations and research. In creating this new suite of leadership content, We observed how modern businesses operate and identified any emerging concerns facing anyone stepping into a leadership position. Each course identifies and explains a distinct aspect of a modern business leader's role. Then, through demonstrations of innovative techniques and dynamic management advice, we provide the learner with essential leadership skills and knowledge they can use in their role. In the collection, we answer questions such as, how must a global leader think and act to manage the domestic and international teams effectively? What is the multiplier mindset theory, and how can it amplify your leadership strategy? How does a leader leverage innovation and keep an organization primed for the future? How can a leader effectively yet thoughtfully manage a multi-generational team? Sound good? Well then, let's take a look at what you can expect from the collection.
Are you kidding me? Envelope pushing, blue sky thinking, synergisticity. This place is chaotic.
So, for any emerging leader looking to gain the skills and insight to lead a team to success, embrace the future of leadership and embark on a brand new learning experience with SAP Litmos.
Well, hopefully you managed to watch that and was quite engaged by it. We really like it. We're really happy with the trailer. So as you can see, we're really happy with the whole collection. So we really hope that you will be too. So, but I just want to go back to the guys and just say thank you for your input today and your insights into the entire collection and all of the hard work and research that you've done to create such a valuable collection for our clients. So what I wanted to do was ask each one of you to state sort of one takeaway or quote which you feel has been the most impactful that you've come across, and share that with the people on this call today. So Jazz, would you like to go first?
Yeah, definitely. My favorite, most important takeaway from this whole collection, and this is going to sound really obvious, but it's not, is something you already kind of mentioned, Danny, that as a leader, you have to take into consideration that everyone on your team is a completely different person from the next one. So that means you're going to have introverts and extroverts. You're going to have different personality types. You have different ages. You have different cultures, backgrounds. And you cannot expect to manage everyone in exactly the same way and expect great results. So I think, for example, like something that we've put in one of the courses that we've had some positive feedback on is just reminding people that, say, for example, if you're in a group meeting and someone isn't speaking, you might think they're rude or disengaged, but it might just be that they're really uncomfortable expressing themselves in a group setting. And I think when you start looking at everyone as individuals and getting to know them a little bit, it can really help you as a leader and help you get the most out of them. So I think it's worth taking the time to figure out your team, and if you can adapt your style a little bit around them. It's a lot to ask, but it's how you lead in a great way over just managing and being a boss. Just to plug one of our other collections, actually, we've got a cognitive functions collection, which might help with this. And this goes into more different types of personalities and how people process data and information in different ways. This could be good. But in this suite, we've got managing different personalities, and that will definitely go into all this as well. So, yeah, sorry, that was quite long and rambly, but yeah.
No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You managed to mention your cognitive functions collection, which Jazz wrote, which was so yeah. So no, that's great. It's a very good point. Carl, what would you say is yours?
I will give you a quote. I'll use the one that was on your screen a little while ago from the multiplier mindset, and the reason I like it the best is, I mean, it follows on from Jazz's points in some ways, but it's because it sort of underpins the collection, the whole suite for me, really. It was the one that went, diminishes are geniuses, whereas multiplayers create geniuses. So the suggestion there is, the old school sort of traditional managers might be, incredible at the jobs, which is great, is efficient, it's productive. But if you can be a leader who gets everyone else, gets the most out of everyone within your team and makes them the best that they can be, that's going to be degrees more productive, degrees more efficient. And I think it's an apt quote because it's a reminder that leadership isn't just about you and how good you are, which it can feel like at times, but it's about getting the most out of everybody, which I think is what a lot of the courses in this suite are all about.
Yeah, definitely. No, it is good to remember that it's not all about yourself sometimes. But yeah, and what I find about that course as well is it'll be in our resources. What would be really, really good to our resources against the course, sorry. It'd be really good to find out what your accidental diminishes are. So I took that quiz a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh no, I do this, I do that, and I've tried to even just rein it in. So apparently, I'm an ideas factory, which is one of the things that's an accidental diminisher, where you just spout ideas and then expect people to either listen or turn them into something. So I have actually tried to, I'm not going to ask you whether you think I have or not, guys, not yet anyway, but I've actually tried to rein that in. But just after excuse me, looking at that course and looking at that quiz, it is actually really effective. So I would recommend that to anyone if they wanted to take that and actually find out what their accidental diminishes are. Anyway, Mike, what would you say was your takeaway from writing this collection?
I think I'd also agree with you. I think I'm definitely an ideas factory as well. I'm always churning out them ideas. But so my takeaway, so on the face of it might be a bit corny, but it's nonetheless quite important. I'm sort of quite entrenched in imposter syndrome at the moment, but with it being so pervasive in business and especially with new leaders, and it follows along from what Carl was saying, actually, what's really vital for your productivity, but moreover the motivation of your team, is to be able to acknowledge your successes, however small or large. For new managers, it's always about development. It's always about improvement. But I think what's important, and people need that positive reinforcement from their leaders. And so that's what keeps them engaged and underpins their purpose. So if you ever needed to silence the self-critical thoughts for yourself or that flare up within a team, it's always good to make those opportunities where you can celebrate the accomplishments of your team, because that will keep you in a positive and a focus and a productive mindset. So that's my lovely takeaway.
Fabulous. I'm going to throw one in there, actually, if you don't mind. So I'd actually like to highlight one of the courses that we haven't actually covered today in this session, which is multi-generational management. So this highlights that whilst we can't stereotype based on age, there are definitely generational differeces which a manager must consider when they're dealing with people. So I like that this highlights the fact that there are now at least four generations of people within one workforce. And so you need to be identifying strengths, practices and expertise from each generation, and that's going to boost overall team productivity. So my favourite takeaway from that particular course is to remember that all team members have their own unique set of experiences, perspectives, principles and ambitions, and then it's actually a manager's role to delve into each of these with each team member and use it to reach a common goal. So I think whilst the title might indicate that we're separating generations within a workplace or in a workforce, we're actually not. We're bringing them together and we're addressing narratives that aren't necessarily true. So I think it's a really important course to take, and one we haven't actually talked about today. So that was mine. But yeah, so I just want to sort of thank everyone for joining us today. So we do have some time for a few questions. So I will go into the chat box and have a look at what you've been saying. So Dale asked a question earlier. I did see this quite early on. So how do you? So the question is, how do we adjust courses for those staff who are not tech savvy and may not do the required trainings? So, I mean, I'm happy to start on this one. So, Dale, what I would say is you don't actually necessarily have to force people to take e-learning, and that's coming from someone who creates e-learning for a living. So I would have a look at what other resources there are available to you and to your team. If people aren't following like tick box exercises, like obviously you're going to need your reports to say what people have completed, but I think especially from a soft skills point of view, which is the point of view that I come from, I can't speak on behalf of any compliance people because obviously that is something that you need to address. But making training, making learning purposeful, as we mentioned before. So with all of our courses that we create blended learning resources with them. So we have things like infographics, we have workbooks, we have things that if people want to print them off, they can, or if they want to view them on a mobile device rather than having to go onto a laptop, they can do that. So instead of thinking about adjusting courses, I would think about adjusting the access to how they learn. That would be my personal thoughts. I don't know whether you guys have any thoughts on that one.
I do, in fact. In the tech literacy course that I put together, it does touch upon. Now, this is largely sort of aimed at managers and leaders and that kind of thing, but it does touch upon the necessity to be, well, as you mentioned, tech savvy. And there's a lot of sort of business leaders and sort of IT experts, that kind of thing. And the suggestion that they've found is some of the most effective leaders and managers aren't necessarily the ones who are experts in IT themselves. They maybe only really need to be familiar with whatever systems and processes you use, and at least have enough or knowledge of the general sort of IT environment that they would be able to weigh up or analyze any sort of new developments that come in and how they could impact your business. So rather than having to be sort of some kind of general expert, all they really need is to know well enough how to do things where you work. And within that course, there are a lot of, as Danny mentioned, there are a lot of sort of things besides formal required training that are really non-committal and can still help to boost your sort of your tech skills. So things like joining online communities, or even just like YouTube videos and stuff like that can be really useful. So there's loads of different ways to sort of get people who aren't necessarily quite there yet up to speed, but they don't necessarily need to be experts themselves for the most part.
Cool, thank you. So moving on to the next question from Jace. So it only seems recently, in my experience, that we have started making people managers over those that used to be co-workers with them. Has this just been my experience? That is the reason why I wanted to actually create the Accidental Manager course. I feel like it has been it's prevalent in some businesses, but not in others. Because when I know I've observed some businesses where once you reach a certain level of expertise, the only way for you to progress in that role is to have a team report into you to produce an even bigger version of what you've been doing. And I mean, my previous life in construction, that was something that we saw a lot. That once you got to a specific level of expertise, you were then expected to kind of share that with people, and you were that accidental manager. So I think that was the exact reason why I wanted to address those things. Jazz, do you have anything to add to that from that course, or any insights there?
No, do you know what? I was thinking about the Peter Principle course that we've also got in the library. I don't know if this would be a relevant thing to mention. I think Carl wrote that, but that could be that could just be an interesting thing to touch on. Carl, sorry, this is your course. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I think in fact, I think the whole point there was that, Carl, you wrote this, didn't you?
Yeah, and the point of the Peter Principle, I mean, if you're unfamiliar with the Peter Principle itself, it's to do with people tend to get hired to their level of incompetence. So they're good at the job, they get promoted, they're good at the job, they get promoted again, and then they're just not good at the job anymore, so they get stuck there and never get promoted again. So the point of that course really was how to avoid that and make sure that when you hire people, you're hiring them for the right reasons. Which I suppose, could potentially be relevant in this sort of this field, this sphere.
Yeah, it's definitely worth looking into, but just to let everybody know, that's not in this collection. that's somewhere else in the library. But yeah, it's the Peter Principle, if anyone wanted to look into that. So we'll move on to the next question. So Sarah asks us, why did you write trust building and empathy as one course rather than two? So Carl, why did you do that?
Why on earth did I do that? No, it's a good question, because there's enough research, enough data out there that you could fill 2 full courses on trust building and empathy, no problem. But the reason that they are merged into this one course is because they are inextricably linked. Insofar as trust building, I suppose, is the goal, and empathy is the vehicle of getting there. So one of the key ways to build trust, as I think I mentioned a little earlier, is to be able to understand something from somebody's point of view. And the more you can do that, the more they will begin to open up to you, because they trust you more. And the more they can open up to you, the better you will be able to understand them going forward. So it's kind of like it spirals upwards. The more empathy you have, the more trust you can build, which means the more empathetic you can possibly be, and so on. So yeah, we put them together as 2 courses because of their, I suppose, conjoined importance.
Okay, that makes sense. Hopefully that answers your question. And also, this one is quite important. So what different approaches have you taken to aim this collection, I'm assuming, at Millennials? So I'm happy to kick us off with that and what the actual reason behind the whole thing was. So the approaches that we've taken, hopefully you'll have seen from the trailer that it's not just a case of click through, because ideally you wouldn't have had to click at any point during that 3-minute trailer, which is just hopefully setting the precedent for the rest of the collection. So I know there's obviously stereotypes about attention spans and things like that, which we won't go into because they are just that, they are just stereotypes. But we want things to be accessible, and we want people to feel like they want to learn about these things because it affects them as a human, not just because they have to for work. So that's why we created different interactions where, like, you can actually see things like appear on a phone as you would in real life, and you can actually choose different routes within courses. You can choose your own answer, really. So it's not a case of you're answering a question and you're going to be right or wrong, because a lot of the topics we're talking about is open to your own personal experience. So what you say in answer to a question, it might not necessarily be the wrong answer because that's what you'll do. So we didn't want it to be so prescriptive. We actually wanted people to explore how they felt about these topics themselves. And I think that does set it apart from other types of e-learning that you can go and take on these topics. We're not telling you how to feel. We're not telling you what to do. We're inviting you in. We're inviting you in to explore those things yourself. So I think that's been quite a big difference to any of the other things that we've produced previously. Plus the mixed media style as well. I think this is something the team have really enjoyed working on. I mean, I don't want to speak for you guys, so jump in. But we've obviously got live action in there, we've got animation in there, and we've got interactivity. So it's mixing all those things together to create a really immersive experience. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Because I feel like I've spoken on behalf of you there.
I suppose I just say because we are in that age demographics ourselves, like we designed the content from like, right, what would we want and what would appeal to our sensibilities. So as Danny mentions, like the mixed media, like using the sort of talking head framing devices, like incorporate more storytelling into the content, like that's something we've always wanted to do, and something we especially wanted to do with this suite was like really contextualize the learning, like make sure it's not just didactic. Everything that all the information, that all the content that's in these courses, we put them in real life scenarios so that it contextualizes everything, so you're walking away knowing how to use the skills and the knowledge that you're learning straight away from taking the course. And like it was ambitious, but like we really enjoyed like pushing ourselves with this content and like trying something new. And I think it really shows off like the hard work we put into it personally.
Yeah, no, definitely it does. And we've already had some amazing feedback from our clients, and hopefully you guys will go away today and take these courses and let us know how you feel about them and chat to us about it, because that's what we want to do. We want to start debate, and I think that's the difference in what we've done as well. So we want to talk to people, we want to gain other insights and experiences. So any feedback that you do have will be greatly received. Join us on LinkedIn and chat to us about it. Let us know what you think. So this next question from Amanda, I like this question. How do you get the older generation to understand the millennial generation and take them seriously as managers? Struggling with this as the executives at older generations and millennials are the younger managers. I have a lot of points on this, but I don't want to hog the question. So does anyone want to say anything to this initially?
I've got some thoughts on this, and I think we've probably all been in workplaces where younger people have kind of tried to take over and they kind of missed the mark. They've not quite got it right with older teams, just because there are skills that you need to learn to do this properly, and it's really difficult when you're younger and you're just thwarted into this new position. I think a really important thing is to admit when you don't know everything, and it seems like a really obvious thing, but it's not. It's just admitting that you are learning on the job, being vulnerable, being open, and also being open to learning from your team. Your team might have been in this industry a lot longer than you, and it's absolutely fine to take a stance where you're like, I can learn from these people. It's actually a great thing as a leader. I think a great leader doesn't need to know everything. They shouldn't know everything. They should be constantly learning. And I think we've all had experiences where we were under the impression that the boss knows everything, and if they don't, then they're a failure, or then they're not a real boss. But I really think that culture is shifting now, and I think with more learning and kind of importance on growth and learning and developing people in the team, I think you just have to be transparent, and that's how you gain respect from older team members, is being transparent and being vulnerable. So that's me. I would definitely think a human approach is so helpful with stuff like this. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I was just going to say, another question's come in while she was saying that, from Josh, saying, how do you get millennials to understand and respect and learn from the older generation, which is effectively what you just said, Jazz, isn't it? Like walking into a job when you're young. I mean, I can use a personal experience here, I suppose, if you don't mind. So I entered a job as a manager of a team when I was 25, and I was expected to manage someone who was 62. Wow. This person had quite clearly 40 years of experience on me at the time, and it was in the world of construction. Again, I did a psychology degree, so I wasn't actually in his world. I hadn't ever been there. What I was good at was organising the team and creating and bringing the team together, and that's why I was put in the role. His first words to me were, "What can you teach me, kid?" And I said, "I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm here to help bring this team together and actually let it make some money and organise the paperwork, which is what I did. But it ended up being a really, really nice relationship, because in that first instance, I stood and said, I don't know what you do. You need to tell me what you do, and I need to learn from you. So again, it's just repeating what Jazz has said, really, but in an anecdote, that you can't just walk into a team and assume you know these things, and you've got to learn from people who have experience. And I think that the multi-generational management course does mention those specific stereotypes of how millennials could act and being entitled and whatever. It nods to that, and then obviously addresses how we can overcome that as such a widespread sort of age group now within so many teams. So hopefully that's addressed some of those questions. I'm just looking at the time. We've probably got time for maybe one more question. This is a good one. So, when is the suite of courses going to be available? So it's available now. I feel like an advert. So yes, it's actually available. It's available now in your instances. It'll be prefixed with Leadership Suite, so you should be able to find all courses there. There are 15 of them in total. So will it be available to standard? Will it be available to anyone who uses SAP Litmos? So you need to have an SAP Litmos content subscription, so which you can actually bolt onto your. So if you're just a platform customer, you can reach out to your contact, and then they can add it on. So it's an additional subscription to what you already have available. But we do have a suite of over probably 1,600 courses now. So this is 15 of them that we're talking about today, but we have a lot of content to cover, including compliance content, a lot of global content. So depending on the size of your team, depending on what jurisdictions you're in which countries, there is some specific content for that as well. So it is available to those who use SAP Litmos, but it is a bolt-on to the platform. So thank you for asking that, Jane. And let's see, one more question before we'll have to wrap it up. Again, when will the collections be available? You can find them now. And we answered Josh's question about the respect. So for maybe the final one from Jim. So thank you for your comment, Jim. So you've enjoyed hearing our thoughts, which is great. You're a baby boomer and have been designing and delivering leadership training for 20 years. So we can take some, as a millennial, I can definitely take some pointers from you on how to do that. So he's just thanking us for our input. So that's great. Thank you for that, Jim. No, I appreciate that. That's good.
Thanks, Jim.
Let's see if there are any more questions. No, just a lot of nice comments there. So I suppose that's a good opportunity to wrap it up. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for your questions. If you need to refresh the page and you want access to the ebook, that should be available there now. If not, then like I say, that'll be attached to the follow-up email that you get from this webinar, and we will hopefully see you soon, and actually you'll be able to take all of the courses and get into a conversation with us about what you think about them. So just like to thank Jazz, Carl and Mike for joining me today, and thanks for all of your hard work, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks for joining us.